What's up, Doc?
What's up? A cartoon election. Hi, this is John Barbour. And please forgive me for wearing these dark glasses, but my son came to Las Vegas for a couple of days and we went out to Boulder Creek and played in 106-degree heat. And I am half blind, so I have to wear these with bifocals to read what it was that I wrote. So let's get going. And in getting going, I'm going to tell you, I hope, honestly, that this is the very last time I'm going to be posting on Facebook, because I have something else that for decades I've wanted to do. It's a promise that I've wanted to keep to myself, and it's an absolute bitch that I can't even keep that promise to myself. But I am compelled to write this because a dozen and a half of my very, very best friends who are very successful executives in either banking or owning their own businesses are going to vote for Donald Trump. And not one of them would hire Trump either as a co-executive or a fucking doorman. They are all 1,000 times smarter than that and smarter than him. And they are a lot more considerate than he is, because those who are not married wear condoms. So why is it that all these very bright, successful men are voting for somebody not only a whole lot dumber than they are, but who was also a lot less successful in business? And they say to me, because they're afraid she's a socialist, not because she's a woman, when they haven't the foggiest idea what a socialist is. There is no left in America. The last surviving socialist is Bernie Sanders, and he's a political eunuch. If my friends have not read Karl Marx, they haven't the foggiest idea but about what industrialized, unchecked capitalism did to destroy families in England in the 1800s. All of this was exposed in Karl Marx's first book, Das Kapital, published in 1867, and financed by a millionaire, Friedrich Engels, one of the oligarchs and the insiders who knew the corruption and the destruction caused by this industrialization in England and wanted it changed also. Otherwise, he knew it would change his country. It was like Gore Vidal in America for decades, one of the 1%ers who for decades and decades told us about the corruption at the top and how it was totally unchangeable. To say socialism is satanic is like saying champagne tastes like shit when you haven't even tasted it. So right now, I am going to lead you to a well of facts. Now, I can lead you to these facts, but I cannot make you think. And I cannot make you change your mind, because I have no intention of doing that, because I have seen that more adults in America change their mates before they change their mind. And it doesn't cost a nickel when you change your mind. So let's get back to the beginning. Jesus belonged to a sect called the Essenes. They owned everything in common. Ergo, Jesus was a socialist. When Christopher Columbus got lost looking for a route to China and was saved when he bumped into the Indians in the Caribbean islands. Indians who lived off of what came out of the trees and off the land, knowing nothing about private property. But Columbus, to teach them the value of private property, chopped off 1,000 hands. And what did capitalist America do? They gave chopping Christopher a holiday. American Indians were socialists, again sharing and living off of what Mother Earth gave them. If you are living off of or paying into Social Security, that is a socialist program instituted by Henry Wallace, FDR's vice president, during the horrifying, almost destroying American Depression. A depression that almost brought about a Russian-style revolution, but it was saved from this by the programs of Henry Wallace. Not only Social Security, but an 8-hour workday, the right to join a union, no child labor, and the beginning of Medicaid. All socialist programs. And what happened to Henry Wallace? There was an attempt by a dozen bankers headed by George Bush's grandfather to assassinate FDR, whom they thought was a socialist. This attempt was to be led by General Smedley Butler, who ratted on them and informed FDR, but FDR didn't have the fucking brains to execute them and cut their heads off. Surviving, they gathered together the other oligarchs and bankers, and they got rid of Wallace because they were afraid he would become, if FDR died in his third term, a socialist president. Third term. That is why we now only have 2 terms. The oligarchs wanted Harry Truman, who could create the Central Intelligence Agency and the security state in 1947, after earlier dropping 2 unnecessary atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Thus began the real decline of democracy in America, a loss of the First Amendment and real free speech under Bill Clinton, the worst president in American history. The loss of the Fairness Doctrine under Ronald Reagan. The worst loss of all, though, is the loss of hope that was embodied in John Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X, John Lennon, all slaughtered in public execution like Caesar in Rome as a public warning. Greed, unregulated capitalism in America has become legalized greed. The perfect society, the one that Jesus and Karl Marx and Dr. King and our Thomas Jefferson envisioned, is one in which no company or no individual should be under the financial or physical control of any other individual or company. In America, that is absolutely not the case. Over 300 million Americans are handcuffed by debt, by the need to have 2 parents get 2 jobs to support a small family. The oligarchs, the handful of families that own this country, as George Carlin warned us about, is a club to which we do not belong. They also have the clubs of the military to see that other countries do not develop a socialist philosophy of sharing. Sharing sets a bad example to America's owners. So as they murdered our leaders, whom we hoped desperately would change this corrupt system, the CIA now travels around the world to murder popularly elected socialist leaders. In the 1950s, Eisenhower ordered the CIA to murder Mossadegh, a teacher who wanted to nationalize his oil for his own country and his own people. In Chile, Nixon and Kissinger orchestrated the murder of Chile's popularly elected socialist Salvador Allende because he was going to nationalize some of America's companies to give the jobs to Chileans. And then, of course, there was that wicked witch of the North, Hillary Clinton, cackling like a hyena over the murder of Gaddafi in Libya, who did not build his own home until everyone else in the country not only had a home, but a job, a free education, and free medical assistance. And the same with the CIA's criminal, clumsy attempts to also get rid of Castro, who was smarter than the whole goddamn bunch of them. On September 5th, 1981, when I asked Jim Garrison why he thought he could take on the federal government, he said, "John, I guess I thought I was living in the country I was born in." I became a citizen in 1977 after years and years of struggle and 2 deportation. America is not the country to which I became a citizen in 1977. In the 64 years I have been in this country, which gave me a fantastic life, a fantastic career, and a fantastic family, I have accurately predicted every presidential election, but only voted once, mistakenly, for Obama. A vote for anyone in this election is a vote for a lesser evil. So why continue the criminal corruption of this evil? This is a great, wide land occupied by refugees like myself from all around the world. And evil is still an evil. As for this November, I hate to tell some of my friends this, but Harris is not only going to win big, but she's going to win by a mudslide. Not because she's not evil, because any politician connected with this criminal system has no choice but to be evil, but she is not Donald Trump. Trump loved it when he could take on Biden, who once in a while had a difficult time talking. Trump has become the Republicans' Biden. His trying to put 3 comprehensive, simple sentences together is like watching a one-legged man trying to walk on a rolling ball. Donald Trump talking is like a verbal shell game. And you're looking, well, where's the nut? Well, the nut is indeed Donald Trump. But he's not so nutty to realize that he is not going to win this election, so he is already planning his next January 6th insurrection. When I look at Donald Trump, I am reminded of that wonderful, funny film, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, in which Steve Martin is trying desperately to get John Candy to say something that had a point. He would say to him, listen, if you're going to tell a story, make sure it has a fucking point about it so that we can get to the end. Donald Trump can't get to the point ever again. In the late 1970s, when I was a writer and a performer on the revival of Laugh-In, writing mostly for Frank Sinatra, one of the little things that we used to write for the show, and especially for Sinatra, were epitaphs of very famous people. Epitaphs on their tombstones. Now, at the time, the most popular person, I guess, in America was Richard Nixon. So the epitaph I wrote for him was, "Here lies Richard Nixon," and lies and lies. That could absolutely be the same tombstone for Donald Trump. However, being a writer, I hate to repeat myself. So here's my new tombstone for Donald Trump. Here lies Donald Trump. He debated Kamala Harris. The one thing that disappointed me a little bit about Biden was he lacked some balls. Now, Donald Trump, we all know, went around saying he's going to be a dictator. Everybody realized that, and he could get away with crimes he commits as a president because of a ruling of his Supreme Court. And he was going to be a dictator. But he still wasn't president. The president was Joe Biden. So I suggested, before he gave it up, that he grab himself by the balls, screw his courage to the sticking point, and become a dictator for the day. And then have the military arrest this son of a bitch, already convicted of 34 crimes, but not arrested by the police or the CIA, but by the military, and sent to Guantanamo, where there is no civilian release. So that disappointed me about Joe. Okay? But I'm telling you something. That will be not the case with Kamala. Kamala has the balls to be a dictator for a day. So, good luck to all of us.